Hello everyone, my name is Shane Sweeney. This is yet another Gun Mayhem update. Um, Compared to my last big update, there a lot has changed. Let's just click play real quick. So I added a basic host game button here. This is just to kind of bypass the host game lobby because the host game lobby puts you in a different map, but then it uses server travel in order to travel to the new map, and sometimes it doesn't quite work and it breaks a little bit. So we're we're using something else essentially. Um, or I want to use this it's just to make it easier to test mostly while in the editor. That's really it. Um, but yeah, we also have the single player thing as well, obviously. So click single player. You will notice. Hold on, don't mind that. But anyways, you'll notice that we got a nice level built out here. We moved the health bar a little bit. We have two new bars here. That's the shared resource system that I will explain in a bit. A new gun, energy rifle for the enemy character. So that's nice. Also headshot damage, of course. We have a rocket launcher now too. Doesn't have an icon yet, but and the character holds it a little bit awkwardly, but I mean it works. It's fine, I guess. I guess I could lower it a little bit or adjust the transform just a tad, but it works. It does the job. Let's go to the intro level real quick. Let's set. That is world settings. There we go. Okay. So aside from level building, which is what I worked on mostly in the beginning of the week, but that was mostly for another class. I'll just show us off a little bit of it again. So we have this intro area. Nice little sci-fi theme too. You can look outside. We got some lights from the ceilings. In this room, we have little target dummies, another gun. You could shoot these guys, whatnot, and they'll die and they'll respawn. If we walk over here, this is a door to the next room. We just go over here. We can open the door. We can also close it. I think later on I have a little keycard swiper there. I'm gonna make it so you have to like pick up the keycard in order to continue, which is right there. Maybe I'll change the location, but walk over here. You'll open the door, and then you'll get your first combat area, basically. I'm trying to make it look like kind of like an engine room or something. It's gonna be a bigger room though, obviously by the looks of it. So that's not too important to this. What I'm working on, or what I wanted to show off for this video. Let's put this to 2. Activate the listen server, and we will show off what has fixed, what has been changed, what has been added. Let's make that a little bit smaller. So on the right we have the server, on the left we have the client, and they are currently two different. Well, they're not, the actual characters themselves and meshes aren't different, but they have different weapons, different starting weapons, as you can tell. So if we look on the right, let me get in frame here. If we look on the right and we shoot, it works fine. If I shoot and we look on the left screen, it also works fine. We should be able to see the bullet impacts as well. Yep. Shooting works perfectly. If we look from the client, we can also see shooting works perfectly fine. Yeah, so I fixed all the shooting mechanics. Essentially, what I did was I had to do a few things to fix not only the bullets firing, but something else for the animations too. Because before I had a weird issue where the bullets were firing twice for the client. I think I figured out why that was happening. So I have the firing mechanic tied to the gun, and essentially it's this thing. This is what fires the bullet, and it takes in a projectile transform, which is calculated with this, which basically just does a line trace from the center of the screen, and then takes a lookout rotation from the barrel, or the shoot point, or whatever. I have to use shoot point here because some of my meshes of the guns are a little bit different, so their skeletal instructions are a little different. But I mean, I could change that to fix it, but for now, this should work fine. Um, so, anyways, what I essentially had to change was how the gun itself fires. So instead, this custom event is not replicated, but the events that trigger it are replicated, and it takes in player that fired to calculate the shooting info and for the firing animation, but don't have to worry about this just yet. But the firing animation itself, we needed to switch that to only work on the server, because the server needs to be the one that's handling the actual firing of the gun. So we only have one bullet firing, because if we are triggering this for both the server and the client, of course the client's going to see two bullets because the server is also firing a bullet and the client's firing a bullet. That's why only the client is seeing two bullets fire, but the server isn't, because the client is firing a bullet, and that second bullet that's being fired is not being transferred to the server. So if we go to the base class real quick, we can take a look at how the guns fire up here. Okay, so we gotta check to make sure we can actually fire the gun, and then if we have authority, we will just fire the gun. Because if we're the server, we just need to fire the gun. That's it. If the projectile spawns on the server, it'll replicate it to the clients. We don't need to worry about that. If we are not the server, we have to tell the server that we're firing, and we also have to tell the client, the owner client, that we're firing as well. Basically, so when that happens, it will just fire the bullet. Before I was using a multicast, but it doesn't really work with the multicast, so I can probably take it out, but same with the stop fire. But yeah, it'll just start shooting. That's it. And then as we saw in here, the actual firing function will only work on the thing that spawns the projectile will only work on the server. And the reason we need to do that is because everything else kind of needs to be replicated from client and server. This one just needs to be fired on the server, otherwise the client will be seeing two projectiles, and we don't want that. That's just information the server needs to know. We also, we'll go with over that in a little bit, but we also have I need to remember where I put this. We have a game state machine that holds the new shared mechanic bars. The reason this is tied to a game state is because the game state is actually, there is a game state present on a server and a client, and this will help replicate the variables and change them easily without having to replicate and mess with all these messing with like multicast and servers and all this, because I was not able to. I was trying to get it to work just on the character class blueprint, but it was not. I was using like for loops and stuff like that, but it just was not working. And I should have done this. I thought I should have done this initially, and I didn't, so I kind of wasted my time. But I figured it out using this system here. I don't think I need this. I was going to do something else, but I'm just kind of keeping this here in case I need it later. So these are just some simple events that will take in an amount for the bar, and it'll just simply add it to that bar. And this bar can be seen on the player hub, or the player HUD, not the player hub. Player HUD. On the event graph, we will also get a reference to the game state, and we can basically just drag out. We can take that reference, or we get the reference to that bar, and then we just divide it by 100 to get the percentage, and we clamp that, and then we can see the health. We can see that bar, and it's the same thing with the energy bar. We just get the same damn thing. And so, if we want to change or affect that variable, all we gotta do is get game state, cast it to the game state, and then we can call these functions. And essentially, the only thing that changes this is the reload. So the reload cost, we'll calculate the reload cost depending on how many bullets we have, and the gun classes also have a reload cost to them. Not the base class, obviously. That is the base class. Let's not look at the base class. Let's look at the AR, for example. If you look at class defaults, reload cost, it's 25, so it's 25 energy. But this number isn't always the same for... it isn't always the same. It's basically just going to calculate the 25 compared to like how much bullets you have. So it's just going to take a percentage of the bullets and take it from that number. So it's going to take current ammo divided by ammo per mag, and then it's going to subtract that to 1, and it's going to multiply that by reload cost, and it'll get the proper cost of reload. So if you have 0 bullets, it'll cost 25. If you have 15 bullets, it'll cost 12 and a half. Yeah, and it'll basically so we'll get that cost, and we will add it to the other bar, and we'll subtract it from the other bar. Essentially, is what's happening, and then the rest of the reload stuff will happen. I also had to add a bunch of replication so the animations would replicate properly, because they do get called by the guns. Yeah, in the gun class, we will call the playfire gunmaster, which is only ever called in the subclasses, but when we fire that, it will get the reference to the player that did it, and it'll call the this one. And if it's the server, it will replicate the fire animation. It'll multicast it. If it's not, it'll tell the server, and then it'll tell itself to do it. So now the fire animation also works. Let's start off the shared resource mechanic. This is mostly for my SIP. I won't go into too much explanation on how this shared resource is supposed to work and like all of the nitty-gritty mechanics behind it. I just want to show off like just kind of how it works real quick. So right now it's only tied to the reload, so if we do a full reload here, we click R, it will take from one side and it'll add it to the other. And if we're the other character, this is the non-kinetic character, this is the enemy character, and we fire, now we reload, it'll do the same thing. It'll take from the left side and add to the right. So this is a big mechanic that'll be played off for this game. Basically, each character has their own like kind of separate bar in the shared resource, and it'll create this like seesaw effect of this power scale, basically tossing the power back and forth. And there's going to be a lot of cool mechanics based off of that idea. But I don't want to go too much into detail trying to explain that right at the moment. I also tried to add multiplayer functionality to the pickup system. So this is not the player. So I tried to get it the same replication going on that I have with all like the firing and all that stuff, which is just essentially okay, if we equip starting weapon, yeah, that one is not one that needs to be relocated. But if we have pickup masters called, I have it set up the same way where it'll do multicast if you're the server. If not, it'll tell the server and the client, and then it all just goes to the same non-replicated custom event, which will basically just take the gun that you picked up. It'll add it to your weapon inventory. It will place that. It'll get that weapon. It'll place that gun on your hand. And it'll place the one that you didn't pick up, the one that you had already, and it'll place that one on your back. And then it'll set the one that you just picked up to your current gun, and it'll set the current gun number. And then if you swap, it's something similar. We have the same thing going on here with the multicast and then the server client thing. We have the things that make sure we can swap, what we're swapping to, all that. But yeah, it'll call the same stuff. You can play the swap animation, you'll stop shooting, and then you'll equip the gun, which uses the same macros. I'm not sure if these should be functions instead, but even when I didn't have them as functions or macros, it still didn't quite work the way I wanted it to, and I will show that off right now. I'm thinking maybe they shouldn't be macros, but let's look at what I'm talking about. So, if we go and pick up a rocket, it looks like it worked fine. On the server, we see that we picked up the weapon. On the client, we see that we picked up the weapon, and the gun's on our back. so on and so forth. The gun works properly, we can reload, all that. But as soon as I switch back to my first gun, you can see a problem. The guns seem to have duplicated themselves, and I have two morphed guns. But we switch back, and it looks like it's fine again. And if we do this on the client side, it looks fine initially, and if we swap, it gets messed up again. But instead of it morphing both of them like it did on the other one, it just morphs the one on the back. So, but the thing is, the server does not see that. It looks perfectly fine on the server side, but the client, it's all messed up, and I don't really know why. But, I mean, the guns work fine. It's not like it's causing issues with how they work. Oh. Okay. But anyways, I'm also getting an error on the gun pickup. Attach gun. This is called on the this. What this is called, it can't get the. I don't know why that's happening either. Just things I need to work on. So that was the last thing I worked on, was the pickup system, trying to get the pickup system to work for multiplayer. That was the very last thing I worked on. As far as obstacles go, that is probably one of the things standing in the way. It's not important. I still want to tweak and mess with the inventory system, because all this code right here is not doing anything. Absolutely nothing. Because there's only two guns that can be swapped between each other at the moment, because of how I have the gun on the back and stuff like that. I might keep it that way. I might not keep it that way. We will see, because I want more gun slots. I think 2 is not enough guns. I want to be able to have it like at least a third or something. But we'll see. I guess this is kind of the main thing standing in the way right now, and I want to add more mechanics to the SIP, the shared resource system. So we'll see what goes. And I also need to continue building up this level, but that's for level design, so we won't really count that for this right now. So things are going pretty well. I mean, I have a lot of time to invest into this, because I'm using this project for multiple different things at the moment. Next thing I'm going to be working on is probably level design, because that is what needs to be worked on right now, is the level design stuff. So it's probably the next thing I'm working on, and then after that, I'm probably going to continue doing SIP stuff and trying to incorporate those mechanics in. But anyways, it's probably a pretty long video. I will shut up now. Anyways, see ya.